Good afternoon, East Goshen. Hope you're having a great Tuesday so far. You're staying warm and dry on this chilly but sunny afternoon here in Beloit, Ohio. And I hope that you've been able to dig yourself out of all the snow that we've had lately. Thank you, as always, for joining me on our weekly devotionals. We are finishing out the book of Esther this week. So the latter half of this book, chapters 6 through 10, make sure to have it done by the end of the week so we can move on to the next book. I'll let you know what that is on Thursday. So Esther 6 through 10, and before we dive into our reflection for today, I want to recap where we are in the book so far. So in the story, Esther has become queen after the previous queen was deposed. King Xerxes, the ruler of the Persian Empire, decided that he wanted a new bride after Queen Vashti failed to respond to his requests, as unreasonable as they were. So Queen Vashti is gone. Queen Esther has come into power. She is a young Jewish woman who was raised by her cousin Mordecai. Mordecai comes with her to the capital city of Susa and thwarts an assassination attempt on King Xerxes' life. But very quickly, Xerxes forgets about Mordecai and nothing really happens to honor or to reward Mordecai for his good deeds. Now, instead, one of the royal officials, Haman, has decided he wants to get rid of Mordecai. Mordecai fails to give him honor and respect anytime he is in the presence of Haman. In fact, Mordecai will not bow. He refuses to bow before Haman and give him the honor Haman thinks he is due. And so what does this evil official do? But he convinces the king to sign an edict saying that all of the Jewish people in the Persian Empire will be killed on a specific day. And that's where we find ourselves. Esther has risen to power. Mordecai has done the right thing even when it doesn't benefit him. And Haman is working out an evil plot to get rid of God's people. Esther decides that she's going to call a banquet because Mordecai has assured her that God has brought her to this position of authority for such a time as this. That's what we talked about on Thursday, Esther 4:14, that God has providentially planned for Esther to be in this particular place at this particular time and is expecting her to rise to the occasion. And so she calls a banquet. She's going to plead her case before King Xerxes. And that was at the end of chapter 5. And so we find ourselves in chapter 6 today. At the beginning of chapter 6, the king, the night before this banquet, is unable to sleep. And so, deciding that he wants to bore himself to sleep, asks his royal officials to come in and read the records of the royal court. And it's at this point, when they read the tale of Mordecai thwarting this assassination attempt, that the king finally remembers Mordecai and asks, "What's been done to honor this man?" The royal officials said that nothing has been done. We forgot about him. And so Xerxes summons Haman and says, "You are going to honor Mordecai. I want you to take a royal robe, a royal horse, and parade him around the city of Susa, telling the people to honor him, to give him the respect that he is due." So that's where we find ourselves for today. Our reflection verse is Esther 6:11, which says, "So Haman got the robe and the horse. He robed Mordecai and led him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming before him, 'This is what is done for the man the king delights to honor.'" See, chapter 6 is the hinge point of the entire book. This is where roles are reversed, where the script is flipped on its head because God is on the move in the lives of Mordecai and Esther. This is the point when Haman doesn't get the respect and honor that he deserves. Instead, he is forced to honor Mordecai. Haman had been plotting to kill Mordecai. He even had a 50-foot pole erected outside of his own house in order to impale the man when the day came to kill all the Jewish people. But here in chapter 6, Mordecai is remembered and honored by King Xerxes. The Lord has orchestrated events. He has orchestrated this particular scenario so that the people of God will be spared through Esther's boldness and Mordecai's righteous actions. The people of Israel are viewed favorably by King Xerxes. And he realizes the mistake that he has made in signing this edict. So the next day when the banquet comes in chapter 7, the king hears the request of Esther and he grants her request. In fact, he says that Haman is the one that is to be punished and has him impaled on the pole that he had erected for Mordecai's own demise. This is a reversal in this book. As I said in last week's video at the end of the week, God is not mentioned in the book of Esther, but his handprints are unmistakable in the lives of the characters. We see him at work even when it's not explicit that it is God who is doing the work in this book. And that's the way it is in our own lives most of the time. It's not always easy in the midst of trials, in the midst of hardship, to see what the Lord is doing. But even when we don't see it, God is working on behalf of those who love him. I'm reminded of Genesis 50:20, in which Joseph says, "What you had intended for evil," meaning his brothers who sold him into slavery, "what you had intended for evil, the Lord has worked for my good." Even when we don't see it, God is working. And that's the point that I want to hone in on for our reflection today. Think back to a time in your life where God proved his faithfulness to you. Maybe in the moment you didn't see him at work. Maybe you didn't understand that his plan was still at play in your own life. But after the fact, when you had time and perspective, you were able to see that God was with you every step of the way. What I'm asking you to do today is think back to those times that remind you of God's faithfulness and to ask him to give you a greater trust in his plans. Ask the Lord today, through the power of the Spirit, to reassure you that he is still at work and that he is still good, even in spite of the things you might be facing. Even when we don't understand it, God's greater plan is at work in our lives. As Paul says in Romans, that he works for the good of those who love him, who are called according to his purpose. So ask for the eyes to see what the Lord is doing in your life today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you will join me again on Thursday as we finish out the book of Esther, and I'll let you know what we're studying for next week on Thursday. Have a great rest of your day.